They say time heals everything. But that's a lie. Because it's been 2 years, and I still can't breathe when I think about it. 2 years since he looked me in the eyes and said those words that changed my life forever. It was just one time. Like that made it better. Like that erased the ache in my chest or the fire in my stomach that burned every time I looked at him after that night. Just one time? He said it like it was a favor. Like I should be grateful he didn't do it again. But what he didn't understand, what he still doesn't understand, is that just one time was all it took to tear apart everything we built. To make me question everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and the man I promised forever to. I still remember where I was when it happened. It was a regular Tuesday, nothing special. I was folding laundry, of all things. And my phone buzzed. His name popped up on the screen. Matt. My husband's best friend. My husband's best friend, who had no business texting me what he did. And I had no business replying the way I did. But you know what the scary part is? It didn't start with a kiss. It didn't start with some wild, passionate moment like in the movies. No, it started with a compliment. A little attention. A simple, "Hey, you look beautiful today." And me, starving for affection. I let that seed grow. Because Daniel, my husband, he stopped seeing me a long time ago. Stopped listening. Stopped touching. Stopped asking how I was doing, and honestly, I stopped telling him. I told myself it was innocent. That I could handle it. That I wouldn't let it go too far. But looking back, the line was never that far away. And the moment I crossed it, God, the moment I crossed it, it still plays in my head. Over and over. What I was wearing. The way his hand brushed mine. The silence that followed. And then his voice, low and breathless. I've wanted this for a long time. And even though my heart was screaming no, I didn't stop him. I didn't stop myself. I wish I could say I didn't know what I was doing. But the truth? I knew exactly what I was doing. And the worst part is, for a brief moment, it felt good. To be wanted. To be touched like I mattered. To be seen. But then reality hit. And everything started to crumble. I can still smell the cologne he left behind. Still feel the weight of the lie I carried in my chest. And when Daniel found out, when he looked at me like a stranger in our own home, he didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just stared at me and said, "Was it worth it?" And I didn't know how to answer. Because the truth? It wasn't worth it. But I was so damn broken. I did it anyway. So when he said it was just one time, as if that made it okay, as if that made me okay, I wanted to scream. Because just one time can haunt you forever. And now I live with that. Every single day. Would you have done the same? Because if you've ever felt alone in a room full of love, if you've ever wanted something so badly it hurt, you'll understand why I did what I did. Even if you don't forgive me for it. I used to think distance only grew in miles. But Daniel and I, we slept inches apart, and I'd never felt more alone. 12 years. That's how long we've been married. 12 birthdays, 12 anniversaries, 12 Christmases. You'd think we'd know each other better by now. But somewhere along the line, our conversations turned into checklists. Did you pay the mortgage? Did you pick up the dry cleaning? Did you call your mother back? We still said, "I love you" sometimes. Out of habit. Like brushing your teeth before bed. But real connection? That left quietly, without saying goodbye. Daniel wasn't cruel. He wasn't angry. He was just absent. Physically there, but emotionally on another planet. Always working late. Always stressed. Always tired. I stopped waiting up for him around year 7. Stopped dressing up for him. Stopped hoping he'd notice the new things I tried. New lipstick, new dress, a different way I wore my hair. He didn't. Not once. And so I stopped trying. But loneliness doesn't just sit quietly inside you. It whispers. It pokes. It starts asking questions like, is this it? Is this what marriage is supposed to feel like? Am I wrong for wanting more? That's when Elise came into the picture. She was my anchor for a while. My weekly lunch dates, my venting sessions, my therapy substitute. We met at the gym. Well, she called it a gym. I called it a place to pretend we were doing something healthy while we sipped overpriced smoothies and gossiped. She listened. She nodded. She told me I was still beautiful, even when I didn't believe it. But now that I think about it, there was always something guarded about her. Like she was holding back. Like she knew more than she was saying. Still, she was there. Unlike Daniel. And then came Matt. Daniel's best friend from college. The so-called wild one, back in the day, charming, reckless, smooth-talking. He'd gotten married young, divorced even younger. I didn't pay much attention to him before. He was just that friend who popped up every few years with a new story and a bottle of whiskey. But this time, it was different. Daniel had invited him over for dinner. It had been a long week. Daniel barely spoke 3 words the whole night. But Matt? Matt looked at me like I was still someone worth looking at. Like I was interesting. Like I was visible. He cracked jokes. He asked me how I'd been. And when I said, same old, he looked at me like he knew that wasn't the full story. After dinner, Daniel fell asleep on the couch. He always did. Matt offered to help me clean up. It was small, just dishes, wine glasses, wiping down the counter. But the conversation, that was bigger. We laughed. We shared old stories. And then there was this moment. He reached for the sponge at the same time I did, and our hands touched. Just for a second. But it lingered. Too long. I laughed it off. So did he. But my heart was racing. I didn't say anything to Daniel. Of course I didn't. What would I even say? Hey babe, your best friend made me feel something I haven't felt in years. What's for breakfast? No. I buried it. Deep. Told myself I was being silly. Told myself it was just a moment. But moments have a way of growing. Especially when you're starved for them. Over the next few weeks, Matt started texting. Little things. Funny memes. Inside jokes from that dinner night. Nothing dangerous. At first. And I kept telling myself that. Nothing dangerous. Even when I started deleting the messages. Even when I smiled at my phone in ways I hadn't smiled in years. Even when I waited, actually waited, to hear from him. I knew it was wrong. But it also felt good. And it felt real. At home, Daniel didn't notice a thing. He was still buried in spreadsheets, meetings, and the never-ending hum of work stress. Dinner was still quiet. Weekends still felt like Tuesday. Elise did notice something, though. She gave me a look one day, her eyes narrowing, her voice soft. You're glowing, she said. And I laughed. But my stomach turned. Did she know? Or was she just guessing? That's the thing about guilt. It makes you see suspicion in every glance. Accusation in every smile. But I still didn't stop. Because for once in a very long time, I felt seen. And that feeling? That feeling is addicting. I didn't plan for anything to happen. I really didn't. But now I wonder if part of me wanted it to. If part of me was waiting for the next time we'd be alone. Waiting to find out just how far this harmless thing could go. And oh God, it went far. Too far. But that moment where it all shifted, it's still coming. And I wish I could turn back. But when the line is so thin and the hunger is so deep, sometimes all it takes is one more dinner, one more look, one more lie, and everything you thought was safe slips right through your fingers. It started with a dinner party. Just a small one, nothing fancy. Me, Daniel, Elise, and Matt. Daniel's idea, actually. Said we hadn't hosted in a while and that it would be nice to catch up, unwind a little. I went along with it like I always do. Cooked the meal, lit the candles, even pulled out that red dress I hadn't worn in over a year. Not for Matt, not consciously anyway, but because I wanted to feel like someone again. Someone who mattered. Someone who was still worth looking at. Elise came in first, holding her signature bottle of Pinot and wearing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She hugged me tight, whispered something about how good the house smelled. Then Matt walked in. And something in the air changed. He looked at me, really looked. His eyes scanned me from head to toe, but it wasn't sleazy. It was intentional. Like he wanted me to know he noticed. Daniel? He didn't even blink. just patted Matt on the back, made a joke about work, and disappeared into the kitchen to grab beers. Dinner was pleasant. Light conversation, laughter here and there. But under the table, under the words and the surface smiles, something was shifting. Matt and I, we kept catching each other's eyes. Little glances. Lingering too long. Looking away too quickly. It wasn't overt. No one else would have noticed. But I felt it. A current running just beneath the tablecloth, pulsing between us like a quiet, dangerous song only we could hear. Daniel, as usual, dominated the conversation with work stories. Elise chimed in occasionally, but even she seemed distracted. She kept looking between me and Matt like she was reading something we hadn't written yet. After dessert, Daniel kicked back on the couch and turned on the game. He didn't ask me to join him. Didn't even look at me. Typical. Elise said she had to leave early, some excuse about a friend's dog or something. I walked her out, and when I came back in, Matt was already gathering the plates, stacking them at the sink like he belonged there. I got it, I said, trying to sound casual. He shrugged. Let me help. Least I can do after devouring your cooking. That made me smile, against my better judgment. We moved around each other in the kitchen like a slow, careful dance. Not speaking much. Letting the silence stretch just enough to feel charged. And then it happened. I reached for a glass. He did too. Our fingers touched. I should have pulled away. I should have. But I didn't. And neither did he. We just stood there, fingers brushing, the sound of the game muffled in the background, and the weight of the moment pressing down like gravity. It was nothing. And yet, it was everything. Because in that second, I didn't feel like a wife. I didn't feel like a ghost in my own life. I felt seen. His eyes met mine, and there was something in them. Not lust. Not guilt. Recognition. Like he saw the cracks in me. And, maybe, he had some of the same ones. My heart was pounding so loudly, I swear he could hear it. I laughed, nervously, pulled my hand away, wiped it on a dish towel. Clumsy, I said, avoiding his gaze. But the look he gave me then? It wasn't teasing. It wasn't playful. It was patient. Knowing. Like he'd wait. Like he knew this wasn't the last moment between us. And maybe, deep down, so did I. We finished cleaning up in silence. When he left, he didn't hug me goodbye. Just touched my arm, gently, as he passed by. Another spark. Another shiver. Daniel didn't ask how the cleanup went. Didn't even notice how quiet I was the rest of the night. He just fell asleep on the couch, mouth slightly open, remote still in his hand. I sat at the edge of the bed later that night, still wearing that red dress. Not because I was too tired to take it off, but because I didn't want the night to be over. Didn't want to return to the silence of being unseen. And that's when I knew, really knew, that something had started. It didn't have a name yet. It wasn't a full betrayal. But it was no longer harmless. It was a whisper in the dark. A flicker of fire just waiting to spread. And deep down, I didn't want to put it out. I told myself it was nothing. Just a compliment. Just a hand. Just a moment. But that night, I replayed it over and over. Like a forbidden song I couldn't stop humming. I laid in bed beside Daniel. The room was dark, silent. Except for his shallow breathing and the steady tick of the clock on the nightstand. I used to love that sound. Now, it just reminded me that time was still moving forward, even when we weren't. I closed my eyes, tried to sleep. But every time I did, I saw Matt's face. Felt that spark. Heard the silence between us in the kitchen, how loud it had become in its own way. Why did that one glance mean so much? Why did one touch feel more intimate than years of marriage? And what did that say about me? The guilt hit like a soft punch to the stomach. Not enough to leave a bruise, but just enough to make you flinch every time you remember it. I wasn't stupid. I knew the rules. I knew where this could lead. And I knew it would be wrong if it ever went further. But I also knew this. There was a part of me that missed being wanted. Missed being someone's first thought in the morning. Someone's reason for smiling. Daniel used to look at me like that. Back when we first started dating. When everything was new, when we stayed up talking until 3 a.m. about dreams and fears and how many kids we wanted someday. He used to hold my hand in the car. Used to write me notes and hide them in my purse. Used to kiss my forehead and whisper things like, "How did I get so lucky?" But somewhere between mortgage payments, work stress, and all the things we stopped saying out loud, that version of him faded. And the version that remained? He was still there. But his eyes didn't light up when I walked into a room anymore. I know marriage changes. I know life gets busy. But nobody tells you what it's like to feel lonely in the middle of a life you built together. So when Matt saw me, really saw me, it cracked something open. And that scared me. Because a part of me, the part one tried to silence, wanted to be seen, wanted to feel alive again, wanted to know I could still cause a stir in someone's chest just by existing. I started checking my phone more often. Not because I was expecting a message, but because I was hoping for one. Even when nothing came, I'd scroll through old texts from him, rereading his little jokes, the compliments I pretended didn't make me blush. I caught myself smiling at them. Caught myself imagining what I'd say if he texted again. And then the shame would crash over me all over again. Because this wasn't me. This wasn't who I was supposed to be. I was a wife. A good one, or at least I used to be. I kept our home clean, made dinner most nights, stayed faithful even through all the years I felt emotionally abandoned. But now? Now I was flirting with the edge. Dancing too close to a line I never thought I'd even approach. And yet, I couldn't stop. I didn't want to stop. Because what do? When you're caught between guilt and longing, between who you were and who you're becoming. I'd stare at Daniel in the mornings, searching his face for any sign that he noticed something had changed. That I had changed. But he didn't. Same coffee. Same quick kiss on the cheek. Same distracted scroll through emails at the kitchen table. It was like I was invisible. And that invisibility, that's what made Matt's attention feel so powerful. It wasn't even about him, not fully. It was about how I felt in his presence. Lit up. Desirable. Awake. I'd try to push the thoughts away. Tell myself, you're just tired. You're just bored. You're just lonely. But the truth sat in my chest like a weight I couldn't shake. I wanted more. More than routine. More than silence. More than being roommates with the man I once called the love of my life. And wanting more. That's where it starts, isn't it? That's the seed. The moment you admit that to yourself, even in a whisper, even in the privacy of your own mind, something begins to grow. Something quiet. Something dangerous. And once it starts growing, it's only a matter of time before it reaches out and wraps itself around everything you thought was safe. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but I knew something had shifted. And I knew I couldn't pretend it hadn't. Because pretending only works for so long. Before the truth starts to bleed through the cracks. It started slow. Innocent, even. A text from Matt a few days after the dinner party. Just a meme, a silly little joke about burnt toast, of all things. I laughed. Actually laughed. Not because it was particularly funny, but because it reminded me that someone out there was thinking of me. Me, not the wife, not the cook, not the background noise in someone else's life. Just me. I replied with something sarcastic. He responded within seconds. And suddenly we were texting every day. It was subtle at first. Little jokes. Shared songs. A funny photo of his dog chewing up his favorite sneakers. But then it shifted. He started complimenting me. Not in a creepy way. In that effortless, natural way that makes your heart skip without your permission. Red really suits you. You always had the best smile. How did Daniel ever get so lucky? I knew I should have shut it down. But I didn't. Instead, I turned off my notifications. I deleted our texts at night before Daniel came to bed. I even started putting a password on my phone, something I'd never done before. The worst part? It didn't feel wrong. Not yet. It felt like mine. A little hidden corner of joy in a world that had grown so dull and gray. Then he asked me to lunch. Said he was in the area. Said he missed talking in person. I hesitated. Typed, "I don't think it's a good idea," and stared at it for a full minute. Then erased it. Sure. Just friends, I wrote instead. A lie wrapped in good intentions. We met at a small cafe across town, far enough that no one we knew would randomly walk in. I wore something casual. Not sexy. Not obvious. But I checked my reflection in the car mirror 3 times before going in. He was already there, smiling like I was the best part of his week. We talked. We laughed. We shared fries like we used to in college. It felt easy. Too easy. I told myself I was imagining things. That the way his knee brushed mine under the table wasn't intentional. That the way he leaned in when I spoke wasn't anything. That I didn't notice his eyes drift down to my lips every time I smiled. I was lying to myself. But I believed every word. After lunch, we walked to our cars. He opened my door like a gentleman. I laughed and said, "You really don't have to do that." "I know," he said, "but I want to." That one sentence. It made my breath hitch in my chest. I sat down in the driver's seat, and he leaned on the door frame, just looking at me. And then it happened. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't messy or wild or filled with music swelling in the background like in the movies. It was quiet. Careful. He leaned in slowly, giving me every chance to stop him. I didn't move. And then our lips touched. Soft. Warm. Too short, but too long to pretend it meant nothing. I pulled away. Breathless. Heart thudding in my chest like it was trying to escape. "This can't happen," I whispered. Every word felt like it weighed 10 pounds. He nodded. "Then it won't," he said, voice steady. "Just one time. Just one time." He made it sound so simple. So small. Like a favor. Like something we could tuck away and forget. But I knew, deep in the pit of my stomach, this was the beginning of something I couldn't control. I drove home in silence. No music. No distractions. Just me and the echo of that kiss, playing on repeat in my mind. When I walked through the front door, Daniel was on a work call. Didn't even look up. I stood in the kitchen for 10 minutes, staring at nothing, my heart still racing. I told myself it was a mistake. That I'd end it. That I'd block Matt's number and never speak to him again. But that night, when I got into bed next to Daniel, and he rolled away from me without a word, I felt it all over again. The ache. The emptiness. The longing to be touched. Seen. Wanted. I reached for my phone under the covers. Typed out a message. Deleted it. Typed it again. Finally, I just sent, "Are you okay?" He replied instantly, "I can still taste you." And I hated myself for loving the way that made me feel. I knew it was wrong. But in that moment, I didn't want right. I wanted to feel alive again. And Matt. He made me feel like I wasn't invisible anymore. And that was the most dangerous part of all. It happened on a Thursday. Daniel had left that morning for a 2-day work trip, something routine, something he'd done dozens of times before. He barely kissed me goodbye. Didn't notice that I didn't smile back. Didn't ask if I'd be okay alone. I watched his car disappear down the street. And for the rest of the day, I walked through the house like I was drifting underwater. The silence was heavy, pressing on my chest like a weight I couldn't shake. I cleaned a room that didn't need cleaning. Reorganized a drawer that no one ever opened. Tried to distract myself with anything that didn't involve thinking about Matt. But by late evening, I was just sitting on the couch, wine glass in hand. TV playing a show I wasn't watching. The house was dim, quiet, still. Then my phone buzzed. One word. From him. "You home?" I stared at the screen for a full minute. My heart thudded so loudly, I thought it might crack open. I didn't respond. Didn't say yes. Didn't say no. But not even 20 minutes later, he was at my door. I opened it slowly. He stood there, hands in his jacket pockets, eyes searching mine. "Matt, you shouldn't be here," I whispered. "I know," he said. We stood there, frozen in the doorway. His presence alone sent a wave of heat and guilt crashing into me. He didn't move to come in. Didn't push. I should have shut the door. I should have told him to leave. I should have said all the right things. Instead, I stepped aside. He walked in. And everything changed. We sat on the couch, barely speaking. Just silence, and tension, and that unbearable closeness that pulled us in like a tide we couldn't fight. I said it again, weakly. "This can happen." And he nodded. "I know." But then his hand found mine. And my fingers didn't let go. I should have stood up, walked away, called a friend. Anything but what I did next. Because the truth is, my body betrayed my words. My heart betrayed my vows. And in the span of one desperate moment, I crossed a line I can never uncross. We kissed. Again. Only this time, there was no hesitation. No space between us. No lies about what this was. It was passionate. Messy. Fast. Breathless. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't beautiful. It was raw. The kind of moment born not from love, but from need. From two broken people clinging to each other, just for one night, pretending they weren't alone. And when it was over, when the heat faded and the silence came rushing back, I went to the bathroom and locked the door behind me. I stared at myself in the mirror. Red cheeks. Tangled hair. Eyes wide and hollow. I didn't recognize the woman staring back at me. And for the first time in a long time, I cried. Not little tears. Not quiet ones. But sobs. Deep, wrenching sobs that came from some dark, aching place inside me. And on the other side of that door, I heard nothing. Not footsteps. Not apologies. Just silence. Eventually, I walked back out. He was fully dressed. Standing near the door. His face unreadable. He didn't come closer. Didn't touch me again. Just looked at me, eyes dull, and said, "This doesn't have to mean anything." And then, quieter. "It was just one time." Then he left. Closed the door behind him like it was any other night. Like we hadn't just broken something sacred. But it did mean something. To me, it meant everything. And yet, I felt emptier than ever. I stood there for a long time. Alone. Still. Listening to the sound of a house that had never felt so quiet. And somewhere deep inside me, a small voice whispered, this was just the beginning. The beginning of lies I couldn't take back. The beginning of guilt I'd carry like a shadow. The beginning of a haunting that would follow me, no matter where I went. Subscribe now to find out what happened next, because this wasn't the end. It was just the start of everything unraveling. The morning after, everything. I couldn't even look at myself. I showered twice. Scrubbed my skin until it was raw. Changed the sheets. Opened all the windows. Tried to erase the night. But no matter how many times I washed my hands, the guilt clung to me like smoke. Matt didn't text that day. Or the next. And I didn't reach out either. I avoided my phone like it was a ticking bomb. Every vibration made my heart skip. Every unknown number made my stomach twist. At home, I went into autopilot. Cooked dinner. Did laundry. Laughed at Daniel's half-hearted jokes. But it was all a performance. Every smile felt like a mask. Every "I'm fine" tasted like ash in my mouth. And Daniel started to notice. Not all at once. Not in a dramatic, yelling, "Who is he?" kind of way. No, it was quieter than that. One night, he looked up from his laptop and said, "You've been different." I froze. Spoon halfway to my mouth. Different how? He shrugged. I don't know. Just off. I forced a laugh. I'm just tired. But I could tell he didn't believe me. And after that, he kept watching me. Not constantly. Just enough that I felt it. Subtle glances across the table. Lingering looks when I left a room. Questions that weren't really questions. Did you go out today? Talk to anyone? Everything okay between us? I lied every time. Fluent now in the language of cover-ups. And then, there was Elise. At first, I thought I was imagining it. The short replies. The missed calls. The way she suddenly had to reschedule lunch 2 weeks in a row. But then it hit me hard and cold. She knew. I didn't know how. Maybe she saw something at that dinner party. Maybe she pieced together the silences between my words. Or maybe Matt told her. And deep down, I think I knew that's exactly what happened. Because why else would she pull away? One night, I finally texted her, "Are you okay?" She replied an hour later. 3 words. "You should tell him." I stared at my screen for so long it went black. Tell who? Tell what? But I didn't ask. Because I already knew. A day later, everything crumbled. It started with Daniel. He came home early from work. Didn't say hello. Didn't ask about dinner. Just stood in the doorway, eyes tired, voice low. Did something happen between you and Matt? My breath caught. My whole body went still. I tried to lie. I tried to say no. But I couldn't form the words. And that silence? That pause? It said everything. He didn't yell. Didn't throw anything. He just nodded. Tight-lipped. Like he'd been preparing for this moment, just waiting for confirmation. How far did it go? He asked. I still couldn't answer. Tears started falling. Silent. Hot. Endless. He walked past me quietly and went into the bedroom. Closed the door. And in that moment, I knew. Whatever we had left was dangling by a thread. Later that night, I found out how it all unraveled. Matt had told Elise. Somehow, some way, maybe out of guilt, or maybe out of a desperate need to confess, he told her everything. And Elise? She told Daniel. I don't know if it was out of loyalty or revenge, but she made sure he knew. And just like that, the circle of silence broke, and the truth spilled everywhere. The silence at dinner after that. It was suffocating. Daniel didn't look at me. Elise didn't call anymore. And Matt vanished. No texts. No calls. No, I'm sorry. Nothing. It was like he'd been swallowed whole by the mess he helped create. And me? I was left sitting in the wreckage. Alone in a house that no longer felt like home. Surrounded by memories that didn't feel real anymore. I would walk through the kitchen and hear echoes of laughter that no longer existed. Stand in the shower and remember hands that shouldn't have touched me. Climb into bed and feel the cold gap between us grow wider by the night. I used to think guilt would feel like punishment. Like a slap. A storm. But it's not. It's quieter. More patient. It creeps in and builds a home inside your chest. And no matter how tightly you shut the doors, it never really leaves. I wanted to feel something real. But all I got was emptiness. And the echo of my own mistake. It haunted every room of our home. Not just what I did, but what I lost in doing it. Daniel barely spoke to me after that night. He'd answer if I asked him something, sure. But his voice lost the warmth. His eyes lost the light. He was still there. But it was like living with a ghost. And maybe I was the ghost too. Some nights I'd sit on the edge of our bed, watching him sleep. Wondering if he was dreaming of a life where I hadn't betrayed him. Wondering if he regretted ever loving me. I started asking myself the questions no one wants to ask. Did I ever really love Daniel? Or did I just love the idea of him? The version of him from the early days when he'd bring me coffee in bed, or dance with me in the kitchen, or write silly notes on the foggy bathroom mirror. The version that saw me, touched me, talked to me like I mattered. Was I holding onto a memory? A shadow? Or did I kill something good because I couldn't live with feeling forgotten? And then there was Matt. God. I think part of me believed, at least for a moment, that it meant something to him too. That maybe, just maybe, he was broken like me. And together, our broken pieces could make something whole. But I was wrong. He disappeared. Without explanation. Without closure. Just gone. And it hit me, hard, that maybe I was never anything more than a distraction to him. A quick escape from his own emptiness. A fix. Because he didn't stay to deal with the wreckage. Didn't offer an apology. Didn't even ask if I was okay. He lit the fire with me. Then left me to burn alone. And I did burn. Oh God, I burned. With guilt. With shame. With this deep, aching regret that clung to every part of me. I'd sit in the shower until the water ran cold, trying to scrub the memory of his hands off my skin. I'd cry into towels, bite down on the sobs so Daniel wouldn't hear them through the walls. And I started asking the hardest question of all, why? Why did I let it happen? Was it just the attention? The thrill? The desperate need to feel wanted? Was I so starved for affection that I let my hunger override my vows? Or was it something deeper? Something darker? Like the fear that no matter how hard I tried, I'd never be enough for anyone again. That I was aging, fading, becoming invisible. That I was slipping quietly out of my own life, and Matt was the only one who noticed the vanishing act. I kept waiting for the guilt to be enough to change things, to make me confess, to fall to my knees and beg for forgiveness. But I couldn't even find the words. Because how do you explain to someone that you shattered them? Not because you didn't love them, but because you didn't love yourself? There were moments, quiet ones, where Daniel and I would pass each other in the hallway, and I'd swear he was about to speak, to ask, to yell, to feel something. But he never did. Just silence. Heavy, constant, brutal. And that silence, that was the real punishment. Because you can come back from screaming. You can heal from anger. But indifference? That's the death sentence. I started to wonder if we were both just waiting for the other to leave first. Like two strangers holding hands in a burning house, too afraid to be the one who walks away. And Elise? She was gone too. Didn't return my texts. Didn't answer my calls. Didn't even give me the dignity of telling me she hated me. I had broken more than my marriage. I had broken the one friendship that ever really saw me. And still, Matt didn't come back. Not to check in. Not to explain. Not to offer closure. Just vanished. And somehow, that part hurt the most. Because he got what he wanted. And then he left me with the ruins. I wasn't just betrayed. I was used. And still, a part of me missed him. And that, more than anything else, is what broke me. Not the kiss. Not the night. Not even the aftermath. But the cruel truth that I gave a piece of myself to someone who never intended to hold it. And now, there's a part of me I'll never get back. If you've ever been in love and still felt alone. If you've ever shared a bed but not a connection. If you've ever looked in the mirror and wondered where you went, not physically, but you, the real you. Then maybe you'll understand why I made the choices I did. Even if you don't forgive them. And if you've ever made a mistake you can't take back, one that changed everything, that you wish you could undo even as some small part of you still clings to the feeling that started it all, then maybe you know how it feels to carry guilt in your chest like a second heartbeat. This story isn't clean. It's not black and white. It's messy and painful and full of contradictions like most real things are. Because love doesn't die all at once. It fades. And when it does, we start looking for something to replace the silence. Even if what we find ends up hurting us more. So I want to ask you, honestly, what would you have done? Would you have left when you first felt unloved? Would you have spoken up louder? Fought harder to save what was slipping away? Or would you have done what I did, clung to the first hand that reached for yours, just to feel like you hadn't disappeared completely? Would you judge someone like me? Or would you sit quietly, remembering your own cracks, your own moments you don't talk about anymore? Tell me in the comments. Tell each other. I want this to be a place where we can talk about the real stuff. The heartbreaks we hide. The shame we carry. The stories we don't say out loud because we're afraid of how they'll sound once they leave our lips. This isn't just my story. It's one of many. And I know. Some of you are living in that same silence right now. Some of you are standing right on the edge of a choice. Some of you have already crossed it and you don't know how to come back. I see you. And I don't have all the answers. But I know what it feels like to break something you love and not know how to fix it. So if this story made you feel anything, sadness, anger, empathy, even just a flicker of recognition, please hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. And stay with me. There are more stories to tell. Some darker, some softer, but all of them real, all of them human. Because in the end, that's all any of us really are, right? Just people trying to make sense of the mess we sometimes create in the name of love. He promised it was just one time. And maybe that was true. Maybe the physical part only happened once. Maybe the line was only crossed once. But what came after? The silence. The betrayal. The self-loathing. That never left. Because some mistakes don't end with the act itself. They linger. They echo. They show up when you least expect them. When you're brushing your teeth and you catch your own eyes in the mirror. When you're folding laundry and you find the shirt he wore that night. When your husband says your name with that same voice, but now you flinch, wondering if he still means it the same way. You start noticing things you never noticed before. The tension in his shoulders. The way he avoids your gaze. The pauses in conversation that weren't there before. It's like something sacred cracked. And now every moment feels fragile. Like you're tiptoeing around the broken pieces, hoping not to cut yourself again. I used to think betrayal was loud, explosive, dramatic. But the truth? Some mistakes don't scream. They whisper, every single night when you try to sleep. Every morning when you wake up and realize you still have to face the person you were and the person you've become. And the worst part isn't the shame. It's the emptiness. The dull ache that nothing fills. Not apologies. Not silence. Not time. You lose things. And not just people. You lose parts of yourself. Your trust. Your peace. Your reflection. I don't know if Daniel will ever look at me the same again. Maybe he'll try. Maybe he won't. But I do know this, even if he forgives me. I don't know if I'll ever forgive myself. Because I can trace the moment it all changed. Not the night. Not the kiss. Not the mistake. But the moment before that. When I knew I was hungry for something I wasn't getting. And I chose to feed that hunger in the wrong place. So if you're standing on the edge of a choice like mine, if you're looking at someone else and seeing what you think you're missing, please pause. Think. Ask yourself, is this really what I want? Or is this just a momentary escape from a life I haven't dared to fix? Because not everything broken can be repaired. Some things, once shattered, never quite go back the same. And the version of you that crosses that line, you may never fully meet her again. She'll change. She'll harden. She'll carry things you never meant to hold. He told me it was just one time. But it's never just one time. Because what you lose afterward, that echoes forever. So choose wisely. Love loudly. And when you feel unseen, speak. Before you find yourself whispering apologies into an empty room, wondering if the person you were is gone for good. Thank you for listening. For seeing me. For not turning away. I hope this story helps someone before it's too late. Before they make a choice they can't come back from. I truly do.